So, as I mentioned in the end of that last recording, this was the only avant garde art in Latin America that the government recognized and supported in the 1920s. The post revolutionary government used murals mostly as a tool for education. So, as part of their education program, the government introduced a new public monumental art to create effective visual language to spread propaganda. There were three main protagonists of the Mexican mural movement: Rivera, David Alfaro Siqueiros, and Jose Clemente Orozco. We will be focusing on the work of Rivera, just one of his works, one of many, which included the proletarian worker as the main subject. Muralists saw themselves as one with the workers' movement and often worked for workmen's wages and likened the physical labor of painting frescoes to an assembly line production, which is kind of hard to believe because painting is probably a lot more fun. Of particular relevance to this lesson is the organizational structure that Rivera used in his painting, his mural, A History of Mexico. And this is found in the National Palace in Mexico City. And we can see that this composition is derived partly from pre contact manuscripts. So there is some similarities between these two, as you can kind of see in the images featured here. His mural narrative includes the history of Mexico from conquest up to the Mexican Revolution. And he's borrowing this manuscript structure and preserves the unity in a very detailed scene. Rivera treated the injustices towards Mexico's indigenous population as historical rather than contemporary. At the top of the scene, Karl Marx is depicted holding a scroll in which he defines a classless society while pointing to a future utopia as workers agitate. This scene reveals Rivera's embrace of communism as a preferred political system. Rivera painted an indictment of capitalism and depicted the United States as a businessman holding ticker tape and framed scenes depicting the decadent and debauched behaviors of those who benefited from capitalist systems. This includes sprawled, naked, semi naked women in the scene above workers carrying loads of bricks on their backs. As a counter, he depicted his wife, Frida Kahlo, and her sisters teaching children to read the works of Karl Marx and his writing partner, Friedrich Engels. Kind of hard to see in this image. There's so much going on here, but this is where Karl Marx is. And see if you can find Frida Kahlo in there. If you're unfamiliar with her and her work, this is a really good example. So Frida Kahlo would also adopt pre-Columbian objects as inspirations for her work. In this painting called My Birth from 1932, Kahlo is kind of emulating and copying the same work as this Aztec sculpture, which is a sculpture of the goddess Tlazolteotl giving birth. So we can kind of see some similarities there and see this kind of transfer of ideas. All right, which leads us to our last artwork, the Codex Espondiensis. This is made by a performance artist, Guillermo Gomez Pena, and visual artist Enrique Chagoya, and the book artist Felicia Rice. They all collaborated to create this book in 2001. It's a contemporary take on the historical codexes that were made about the history of the Americas. And the work is printed on amatul paper, which was the traditional medium of Mesoamerican manuscripts. And the language of the text uses mixed Spanish, English, and the Aztec language, Nahuatl. The narrative includes characters in the history of the Americas, from Hernan Cortez and Moctezuma to Mickey Mouse and Superman, and takes the reader on a journey through the struggles of the Chicano experience. The Chicano experience would be, depicted through the Chicano movement, which began in the 1960s. It was a civil rights movement that had multiple aims, including farm workers' rights and better education. That movement also fought to reform negative or reductive stereotypes of Mexicans in media outlets and popular culture in the U.S. So this is a really amazing work of art to kind of depict that history, and that struggle.